We are live now.
Hey everyone, welcome to Android Study Jam by GDSC TSEC and TSEC Mad Club. So this is going to be a three event session wherein the first day we are going to be looking into Kotlin. The second day we are going to be building an Android app, and we'll continue with the app on the third day as well. So your host for these three sessions is going to be Darshan Randar. He is a third year IT student at Thadamal Shani Engineering College. And he has extensively worked with Flutter for the past 2 years and has a lot of experience in Android as well. Um, he has published quite a few apps on the Google Play Store, and he will be helping out our speaker for the day, Chintan Parmar. So, handing it over to you, Darshan. All the very best, and yep, please take over.
Yeah, so let me share my screen right now. Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Darshan. Welcome to Study Jams, Android Study Jams. So today we are going to go through like what we are going to learn in this Study Jams. So what will you get in this written from this? So let's start with the first slide. So you can see, you can follow me on GitHub and Twitter and ask me questions over there as well. Yeah. So what are study jams? So Android study jams are basically community organized study jams. So you can learn stuff about Android and collaborate with people. You can talk to our host, like our speaker Chintan and me and other people in the community and learn what and go ahead with the Android stuff. So for this, first of all, you need to create Google developer profile. So you can go to this link. We will soon share this link on our WhatsApp group, and you can just go to this link and create your profile. This profile will be very useful for us in future, and all the badges. So the main use of this profile is all the stuff which you learn about through code lab and stuff like that. You get badges. So that badges would be collected over here, and that would be used in our future process. So in this process, we need to have some Android Studio or IntelliJ installed on your devices. That's a simple process. And we are going to follow this course. And you can also use the Kotlin playground to run Kotlin code without installing any stuff on your device. Right? And the how will this look like? So on the course, you have 6 units. This will go from introduction to Kotlin to the navigations and animations in Android. So it covers the whole stuff of the Android, and you will have 16 pathways. 16 each pathway at the end of the pathway, you will have 6 quizzes. Each pathway has a quiz at the end, and after each pathway, you will get a badge. So to complete this Android stuff, so you need to collect all the 16 badges, and then you will get the profile created. And yeah, so what are the requirements? So what you will get? So you will get to learn about the basics Android in these 3 events, and the prerequisites could be basic knowledge about computing programming. So if else and for loops and stuff like that, and also some basic knowledge about mathematics, addition, subtraction, not calculus and hard stuff. So these are all the stuff over here. So what will you get to learn? So first we'll get with the introduction, creating a first standard application, building the basic UI, adding a button and handling that button clicks, the user input, scroll, navigation, components, coroutines, schedulers, stuff like that. Right. Why should you enroll into Study Jam? So study exams basically they provide you with the guidance, and there will be a community around it. So other people who know Android much better than you can help you over there, and also you can learn with your peers and friends and go ahead with the journey. And yeah, certificates are always there. So there are 2 kinds of certificate. You will get the course completion certificate. You will get this certificate once you have completed all the 16. Once you have collected all the 16 badges, and you will get the participation certificate regardless of that, right? And do you have any questions around it? Yeah. Also, I forgot to add this thing. So you have to, uh, if you want, you can go ahead with the Android Google Certified Android Development exam, we will reimburse the 80% fees of that course. So it is up to you. If you clear that program test, if you are certified Android developer through Google, we will reimburse the 80% of the fees that is charged. Do you have any other questions? Okay, I guess we are out of questions. So yep, uh, let's introduce our speaker for the day. So Chintan. Yeah. Hi, Chintan. Chintan works on Android development. Chintan is an Android developer. He has been a mentor at Google Developer Exchange Program in 2021. He is also an active organizer of Kotlin Mumbai, and he have worked with applications like HDFC Smart Hub and other stuff. He's passionate about psychology. Currently, he's working with being a mental healthcare startup. He's not When he's not on laptop, he's in his kitchen cooking interesting recipes. So maybe we will get something to eat after the session. We, Chintan.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
cool.
sure. If it was a physical meetup, definitely we would have celebrated it. But yeah, anyways, thank you for the warm introduction. Yeah. So so basically, as Darshan mentioned, today I am going to be your mentor and I'm going to take the session for this Android study jam. We'll start with Kotlin first, and then since we have 2 more days, so we will be going to UI thing, which is XML, and then we'll learn how to integrate XML with Kotlin, both of them together. So yeah, this is a day one. So we'll start with Kotlin. So yeah, thank you, Darshan, once again for the welcome and introduction. Okay, so I will start with it. Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Is it visible?
Yeah, it is visible right now.
Okay. Okay, so basically, whenever we are starting our Android journey, I always recommend people, rather than just going for courses or, following some particular thing or maybe particular pathway, it's better always to go to the official docs. So I like to, share people that, okay, this is the uh, place where you can start your Android development journey. So this is a website which is developer.android.com, where you can visit and you can check about all the Android stuff there. So even like for the tomorrow's session, we will be requiring you to download the Android Studio, so which you can definitely download it from here with the given instructions. It is very easy to install things. So yeah, you can scroll down and you can see we have option to download the Android Studio, Place Console. Also, you can find Android courses and all the latest things about Android you can find here. If you scroll down something more, you will find developer guides. So what is developer guides? It's basically how to build your first application and also how to take it to the next level. So that is what it shows you in the Android developer guide. So you can refer it. And also, as Darshan showed you, that you can create your developer profile. So once you create your developer profile, you can also link up all those resources. Like suppose if you want to bookmark this page, you can bookmark it and it will get stored in your developer profile. And also completing all those like learning, you also get some badges also, so that is again good for you. So that is one thing where you can start with the Android part. Since we are going to start with Kotlin, why Kotlin? So Kotlin is Google's like Android first programming language, so which is preferred uh, as for the Android. Like previously we had Java, but in 2019 Google has announced that Android is their official first supported language. So nowadays, like whatever libraries comes, they firstly comes into Kotlin, and then later they try to add in Java, but there are still many dependencies which are not supported in Java. Because since Kotlin is very concise, and like we will be seeing that like very beautiful language, I would say. So for the Kotlin, you can go over to kotlinlang.org, which is the official website, and where you can read about Kotlin stuff. Like you can find the documentations here. You can even try your Kotlin code online, and all those stuff you can find it here. And if you go to get started, you can see about the fundamentals and all those stuff here. So this is the Kotlin Lang official website. In case if someone has like internet issues, or they don't want to like they don't have internet everywhere, they want to read it offline, then you can also download the Kotlin books. I guess it should be somewhere here, but yeah, it is on the kotlinlang.org/docs/Kotlin PDF HTML. So you can download this book, and once you download it, you can read it like wherever you are at your phone, or maybe iPad or something, anything. So you can
Yeah,
read it,
Chintan.
and
So
yeah,
yeah, you said that previously Android was running on Java. So
yeah,
what are your views on Java? So you have learned Kotlin and you're working with Kotlin, right? So
yes,
how much do you like Kotlin, and what is the main, like, what is
okay.
your favorite feature in it?
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I started Android development in 2017. So at that time, we were using Java. And yeah, so coming from Java and migrating to Kotlin was bit like difficult as in terms of when we are working in corporate. So there are the companies who who want their apps to be released as soon as possible, and productivity they need. They don't think something about like what you're using in backend and whatever language. So that was difficult to convince your manager and all. But switching to from Java to Kotlin was very easy, since it is very similar to Java. Since if you have studied Java in your education syllabus also, it would be easy to switch to Kotlin. And what I like about Kotlin is a lot of things. Like first of all, I can say in Java you have lot of boilerplate code which gets
Yeah,
reduced
yeah,
in
that
Kotlin.
that that
Yeah,
really sucks, right?
yeah, and according
Also,
to the document, yeah, yes, and
yeah.
according to
So
documentation, and
basically,
people say null safety and all. Yeah.
yes, and also like we had this thing Java in our third semester,
Okay.
but
Oh,
as it was online, so I don't know like how many people had paid attention to it actually. So
okay.
let's see like who has the basic knowledge of Java to build upon with Kotlin.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Like yeah, even if you know C++ or any like object oriented programming language, Kotlin is easy to adapt. Like it's like if once you start using Kotlin, you will love it over all the languages, and it's very concise and easy to learn. So that is the one thing. What I like is, yeah, definitely readability is a good thing. Then we have a lot of things, like even they say we have coroutines which is not in Java. So even if you want to use something similar to threading and all, you have to go with maybe your create your own threading pool and all, or maybe use Rx Java, which is again a little bit complex library.
yeah, yeah,
Also, even if you want to create a simple class which has like getter setters and name like person name and all those things, for that also you will require a lot of code. But again, if you switch to Kotlin, you have data classes and all. Plus, one thing is like you even if you learn Kotlin and you like Java, you can always use your Kotlin code in Java and Java code in Kotlin, so which is interoperable. So that is good. So yeah, so that is a good thing. So that is what I like about Kotlin.
yeah, yeah. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, great. Okay, so people, like if anyone has any doubt while I'm going through something, or maybe some feedback, just drop it in comments. So I will go through it, or maybe Darshan will answer your query. Yeah. So first of all, as we have discussed, you can read about Kotlin from here, and for the Android, you can go to developer.android.com. And since we are today's first session, we are going to do something about Kotlin. Like we are going to see how Kotlin code is written, how we can run the code, and all. So that as the participants might have not installed the IntelliJ IDEA, so we can go on to this play.kotlinlang.org, which is the playground for that. Yeah, so Harsh or maybe someone can just share this link in chat, so maybe people can go through it. So if you visit this play.kotlinlang.org, you can write your Kotlin code and you can simply run it, and it will show you output somewhere here. So that's it. That's very simple. So let's just remove this code and first try to understand. Okay, so how do I generally show people like how do we code? So it's something we have to create something so that you get the feeling of accomplishment or like, oh, I have done something. So for that, today we'll try to create a very basic calculator kind of thing where you can put some numbers and operators, and then your Kotlin programmer or maybe compiler will compile that program and it will give some output. So we'll try to do that. So for the first thing, for understanding that, we need to understand some basic constructs of Kotlin, like how do we write code in Kotlin and how do we declare variables and all those stuff. So since I'm assuming that we all the participants are coming from some computer engineering background, so they might at least be aware of classes, functions, and variables. Even if not, I will try to explain it in very concise format so that you can easily understand how it goes. Okay, so first of all, whenever you want to declare something in Kotlin or maybe any programming language, like you have a like text or maybe numbers, so we have particular data types for that, like variable. How do we declare that? So generally in Kotlin, what we use is int for integer. So suppose you want to declare an integer. Integer is nothing but a number. So if you want to declare a number, what you will use it? You will use int for that. Okay. Then we have some text. If you want to define some text, which is we can say string. So for that we have a string as a data type. Similarly, if you want to check Boolean operations like true or false, so for that we have Boolean. Okay, so these are the primary data types, I can say, which you would be using in your day-to-day Kotlin programs and even in Android. We will see how to declare that. Uh, yeah, this is just I wanted to show, like in basic programming, if you have something to define, you define it this way. So now in Kotlin, if you have heard that it is a null safe language, and like most of the things are immutable in Kotlin. So what is immutable and mutable? So there are two things in programming. One is like you define some properties values which can be changed later on, and there are some properties which cannot be changed later on. So suppose if I say uh, like simple, if we say what your student ID, so you get one student ID or roll number which is going to be unique throughout the year. So it is not going to change in any of your semester. It is going to stay as long as you are in that year. Another property which can change is your phone number. So maybe you have given some phone number which can change later on, but so some things are unique and some are going to change. So similarly in Kotlin, to avoid setting the value of null and also to make it anything empty, we have immutable concept. So in Kotlin, it is recommended to you define those variables as immutable as much as possible, so that there are less chances of setting it as null, or maybe less chances of like setting some wrong values, all those things. So that is what we do. So for that we have two properties. One is val and one is var. Some people say var, val, val, so whatever it's that. So if var, what is var? So what is a var? It is just like a variable which can be changed. And what is val? So val is like a value which cannot be changed. So we have two types which we can define for the any variables. So as we see, like if we want to define a number, okay. So what you will do is we'll write val, and we say, like, we can give the name of the variable anything. I will call it num, and I will define it as 2. So now my this num as the value as 2. So what it will happen is num will be a name of my variable. What it will do is it will act as a box, and in that box we'll have this 2 as a value. So now in very like if we understand into very depth or something, so it will be, what we do is it will go into memory, it will create its box which will be named as num, and in that num it will keep a 2 as a value. In case now I want to change this value to 3, so if since it's a like playground and we cannot see the exact error, but if we do same thing in into our id, you can see it won't be possible. So I'm just switching my screen to id so that we can see the errors if something is there. So I am just showing you my id so that we can see some autocomplete views and all those things also. So whenever you are switching to that, it would be easy for you to understand. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, this is my id. So as we defined that val num, which I kept as which I kept as 2. Okay. And now I want to make it as 3. Okay. So you can see there is one red error here. Val cannot be reassigned. So what is the meaning of that? Like since I have defined this property as immutable, which is value, so I cannot change it to 3. If I want to do this, then I will have to define it as var. So if I defined it as var, which is variable, you can change it any point of time. So yeah, this is how you define your any of the properties in like in your value or your variables in Kotlin like this. Similarly, if you want to define some string, you can say well string whatever name equal to Chintan, and you can define it like this. Similarly, you have some values like where you are checking condition. So maybe is present, like maybe if you are checking for students, so is present, we can say it as false. So this is how you define it. Uh, and Kotlin doesn't require to write your data type explicitly. Like if you are doing the same thing in Java, you will have to define it as string a something like this and put a semicolon, which you don't need to do in Kotlin, as compiler already understands what value you have defined. And also it makes sure that whatever you are assigning is going to be that data type only. Suppose if I try to assign 2 into name, which is my string, it won't allow me. It can say, even if we make it var, it will say that the integer literal does not conform to the expected type string. So since we haven't defined explicitly, but compiler understands that this name is a string and it cannot be assigned with a int. In case if you want to explicitly define it, you can put a colon here and you can also write this way string, so which is also valid. Similarly for this, you can write it as a boolean, which is also valid. But in Kotlin you don't need, like explicitly we don't need to define that. So this is how we define our variables. Like anyone has any doubt here, so maybe they can just put in chat. I can just confirm if not. Okay.
Yeah. So
Darshan, any questions?
not yet. So I have this question. You said that your favorite question, like your favorite one of the feature was null safety, right? So
Right.
can you please elaborate on that? What would be the like, what are the
Yeah.
pros of null safety?
Yeah, sure, sure. So, what are pros of null safety? So, suppose in Java you can set any of the property to null. So, okay, just a second. Okay, yeah. So you can set any property to null, but same thing you cannot do in Kotlin. So, like if I say it is var and if I want to make it null, so even if we do this, it will say even error. A null cannot be a value of a non-null type string. So there is one quote also like null is $1 billion mistake. So basically that is one of the major drawback of Java. Like in many of the website and many of the stuff we get this Java null pointer exception and all. So what happens is like in Java anything can be set to null. So by mistakenly if developers set it to null, what it will do is it will just crash your app or system or whatever. But in Kotlin, since it is null safety, you have to explicitly tell this string that it can be null. If I put this question mark, so which indicates that it can be null. So now I can set this at null. But same thing, like if I want to print or maybe I want to do some operations on this string, if I say like if I say to some other property, like I create one more property, my name, and assign my name to this. Okay, and in this I explicitly say my string will be not null. Just a second. There is one I don't know. Okay, so generally I reformat code, but my control alt was not working great. Okay, yeah. So now you can see again we require type is string, and what I'm passing it is a null string. Like it, the nullify string is string null can also be happen, and it cannot be not null. But this my string is going to be not null, so I cannot assign a null value just a null here to my normal string. And in case if I want to print this or I want to do some operation, I will have to explicitly write this way. Okay, if this is not null, then only you have to do some things. I say I will have to pass it into a block to just make sure that it is not null. So this is what null safety. So it prevents you from anything. Like even if I say null length, if we try to get the length of the string, we'll get this error. Okay, value is always null karke. So this is where Kotlin is very much like robust in terms of null safety. Like you cannot do anything null to not null, and not null अगर है तो उसमें null नहीं डाल सकते, and if you have null thing you have to always make a safe call and address it. So compiler is very strict in terms of null safety. So this is
Oh,
where
so
null safety comes up.
yeah, so it is basically saying bye bye to all the null pointer exceptions,
Yeah.
right?
So it would be like there would be very less number of chances कि जहाँ पे आपका कुछ it's setting null. Most of the time it would be very safe. So your program might be like next to impossible होगा crash होने के लिए, until and unless if there is something which you have explicitly told. Like अगर यहाँ पे you assert it with like this, or you just pass it as a question mark and you just ignore those things, then it can be a mistake, but compiler won't allow that. Yeah, so that is the
Yes,
power of this. Yeah,
compiler is basically smart, helping us, but we are the only dumb people
yeah,
typing the
yeah.
code.
Compiler or yeah, auto completion and all those things will help us. Great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this is how we define our variables and all those things. And okay, so another thing you would might notice is here we have a keyword called fun. And in Java, if we have studied, we know that there are void, then whatever the function type is there, we write it as that. But in Kotlin, if you want to define any function, you will have to write a fun keyword. So like say my, like if I want to create my simple function, so I will have to write fun, and then I have to define a bracket and then parenthesis. So this is how I can define my function. And suppose my function is going to return something, so I have to define return type like this. And similarly, if we do it in Java, we used to write like private void, and then we write string, and then we say my simple function, something like that. But in Kotlin it is little bit different.
This
So how
this
you
doesn't
define
look
it?
simple at all.
Yeah, but it is very simple, and it is understandable. Like what is this doing? So there is like my name is function, it is a function, and it will return a string type. So this is how you define a function in Kotlin. So we can see there is already one function written for us, which is main. So as in Java or maybe any other C++, we know that main function is of the entry point of our class. So like it would be the first thing which will get executed in any of your program. So since like in Java we have public static void main, and then you have some arguments and all that, so which is similar to that. So here we just have a name function, and name of the function is main, and then we can write our code here. So yeah, let's like define something and print it, so that we can see like okay how does Kotlin works. So I will define my val, which would be string, or maybe we can just name it as hello, and we can call it hello Kotlin. Okay, and yeah. So now we have defined our variable which is hello Kotlin, and it is a property like val, so it cannot be changed, and the name of that variable is hello. So now if we want to show this to user, or maybe you want to see some output, like whenever you write program you expect an output कि कुछ तो दिखे, somewhere I have to see something. So how do we do that is basically we will get your run tab where we can see the output. So compiler will compile the program and we can see the output. So how do we run the program? You can see a green arrow here. You can just press play and it will run our program. It might take couple of seconds, and depending on the system might take minutes, as it has Gradle and all those compiling thing. So it might take a little bit. So yeah, once it is done you will see some output here like this. But since our code does nothing, it currently just as a hello string, but we are not showing any output. To show any output we can write print. So what we are doing is we are calling this print function, which is predefined in the standard library. So you can see what all things we can pass into this function. It's boolean, byte, character, float, int, long, short, all those things we can pass it. So we have the string, we'll pass our string to this. So now if you run the program again, now you would be able to see some output which would be hello Kotlin. So yeah, this is our first program which we wrote. So we can see the output which is hello Kotlin here, which we defined here. And now if you change anything to hello world, and yeah, you can run the program and then you can see hello world as the output. So yeah, this is how you define your function, define your variables, and you want to see some output, you define it like this. Any doubt till here? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I don't see any doubts over here. So yeah, let's
Okay,
go ahead.
like any questions or
I
something
I,
like this?
I honestly don't miss system.out.println.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's the main thing. Like, Kotlin is so concerned. Like, boilerplate code is completely avoided here. Like, as you mentioned that in Java, if you want to do same thing, you will have to write system.out.println and then pass your string. But here, simple. It is like just print and that's it. So this is the beauty of Kotlin. Great. Yeah. So
Yeah, also,
similarly, yeah.
sorry, just for a second.
Hmm.
Uh, so this was basically our first day. So we are not completed yet. We will go ahead with now. But I'm also pasting the link to the second day. So everyone who is over here watching our session, please go and RSVP to the second link as well. So we can go ahead with this thing. Yeah. And also, we had this question, Chintan. Do we need to, let me put this on focus. Do we need to make any Kotlin specific changes in our IntelliJ IDE to run Kotlin code?
No, we don't need like main thing is it is by JetBrains, so it is already bundled with all those Kotlin stuff here. So even if you're creating a new project, you can go to File, New, and select Project, and then you can specify your project name, like temp or something, and then you can select this console application so that it can we have some output on console. There are other options as well, but since for day one and since we are starting with Kotlin, you can just go with this, press next, and that's it. So that is a simple setup you have
Okay,
to do, so which you can do that.
cool.
And okay, and also let me just show the online wala id also. So in case since we don't require IntelliJ for our Android development, so not needed that. So even if we have this here, so we can write function main, and we can do the same thing. We can define our string here, hello, and then you can just write print statement and you can pass your string. And if you run the program here, you can see the output here as well, hello. So this would be much simpler than installing IntelliJ IDEA for But yeah, definitely you will get auto indentation and suggestion to the code, and you can do a lot of stuff compared to playground. But again, for the participants who don't want to install two system on their PC, then they can just go with the Android Studio and they can play with Kotlin here.
Yeah, so let's just wait for a minute or two. Let other people RSVP to the link so they can register to the next day's event, tomorrow's event. And also, we will share this link on the WhatsApp group as well.
Okay. Okay. So should I continue?
Yeah, we can go ahead, right? Good.
Okay. 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 Got it. Okay. So let us go. Okay. Do we? Okay. So we have done with the comment. Okay, so now we we'll continue our code, and okay, so now what we'll do is, now we'll try to define some integers and see how does it works. So since I already told we don't need to define explicitly data type or what is the variable going to be, I can just write 1 2 3 here, and now if we try to print 1 2 3, we can see the output as 1 2 3. We can see the output. Okay, so this is where your output will be shown. Okay, just a second. Okay, so we can see the output here. And now, since I told that we'll be building some kind of basic small application, which would be our calculator. So how we are going to build this? So first we'll define our number one. Okay, so since we already know how to define a value, which is string and numbers, so let's play with little bit work with console. So we'll define number one, and we'll define it as 12. Then we'll define our number two, which will define as 20. And now we want to print the sum of both of this number. So how do we do that? So we define it a third variable, we call it as sum, and we say number one plus number two. So now we have the sum, and if we want to see the sum on the console, we'll write sum. So now if you run the program, you can see the output as 32. So this is how you define your or maybe do the operations like plus and all those stuff. Suppose if we want to uh, subtract the number, we can just write minus and then we can run the program. So we should get output as 20. Yeah. So this is plus minus, and you can also do a multiplication. So 40 into 20, which is 800, we are getting here. So this is how we define or maybe calculate our thing. So this operators will used for our making a calculator. So now let us start with some function first. So we'll write the function as my calci. Okay, and that what we'll do is we'll pass two number. So how do we pass numbers as a like anything to a function? So basically here you can see on the top we are passing some arguments here. So similarly, whenever we want to pass to anything to a function, first why do we need to pass anything to a function? We'll try to understand with this thing. Okay, so this was our code where we were doing some operations. Now in case I want to change numbers, or maybe I have to add more numbers or change operators. How do we do that? We'll have to change it every time here manually, which might not be feasible in the real life program. So to avoid that, what we do is we just separate out this code to a function. So this is how we call it, like my calci. And what we do is we put those code here. And now instead of having all those code in the main class, we have separated it to my calci program, my calci function. And now we can call my calci function as simple as we were calling a print function. That's it. And if you run the program, you will see the same output which was earlier, which is 800. But now what is the advantage is? The advantage is that you don't have to write your whole code here in main block. You can separate it out as it is a separate responsibility of that function. Like okay, so in programming, whenever you write a function, basically we define it as per the name of its responsibility. So suppose what this function does, it calculates. So that's why we are calling it myCalc. If this would be a function which would be printing numbers, we would be calling it print num, something like that. So that is how you define your function. So now we have defined this function, but now whenever we want to change the value of this number 1 and 2, we'll have to manually change here. So how do we avoid that? We can do is we can pass this num1 as a variable here. So we can pass that num1 and it would be of type int. We'll define it here. Then we'll define number 2, which will be of type int. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now we can remove those both the properties, and now we have defined our parameters here. So you can define your parameters in the brackets, and now you can see there is some red line here, like no value passed for number 1 and number 2. So since we have told that this function will require 2 parameters, you have to make sure that you are passing those parameters into the function call. So we can pass 20 and 40 as our value. Now if we run this application, we can see the same output, which was 800. So this is how we can define our function. And similarly, if we change this to plus operator, you can see the output gets changed. So
Yeah.
like
So
this is how
Chintan,
we define it.
we had a
Yeah.
few questions over here.
Okay.
So first of all, we had this question from Rohit Mehra. I've been developing apps using Java. So can I build an app using Kotlin as well as in Java?
Java, so can I build app using Kotlin as well? Yeah, you can do that. Like even you can create one. Suppose if you go to IntelliJ IDEA, you can also create one class with Java here. So you can see Java class is there. So you can create that Java class and you can call that function from Java class into Kotlin and Kotlin functions into Java. So that is you can do it.
Yeah, and also we had another question.
Mhm.
So a lot of questions are here. Sorry. So Ekta asked us that to change the value, can't we use var instead of var?
Yes, Ekta, we can use it. So I guess what she mean by this is like if we define a year as var,
Yeah,
and then we can change the value, right?
yeah. So basically, in the initially what you told that var is kind of the thing. You're saying that I can change this value later,
Right,
and var is the thing. This is the fixed value, and please don't allow me to change this. Right.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So basically, that's what we can do. But yeah. So Ekta, why we are using var here is so that in Kotlin we try to avoid mutable type thing. But what we are learning here is like how do we create a function which can be called with any out input. Like suppose you are calling this function with passing the parameters here, but in like after this, if we want to take input from user, so we can't do that now. Like if we want to take some input by as we have to like system.in and all those things. So if we want to take input from user, then what we'll do is we have to pass input here. So if we keep var as thing, so we cannot deliver this program to any user. So they don't want hard coded numbers. They want to enter something. So if you are compiling this as an application and you are delivering to them, then you will have to use functions where you can change the values like this.
Yeah.
The arguments are
Also,
going to be, yeah, the
the next
arguments are
question
going
is
to
the
be,
arguments are going to be immutable.
yes, yeah, yeah. So basically, since we are defining it as a property, and if we see the code compiled for this, so it would be immutable. So this would be as a property. So even if you try to write val, you don't need to write that. So you can see compilers remove val from parameter.
Cool. The next question is from Puneet. Do we have to define the data type explicitly for function parameters, or will it do without it?
Right. Nice, great question, Pranit. Yeah. So why we define here it is, but because if you remove this function doesn't know what to expect. So a function needs to know okay, what you are going to pass. So now, as we saw this earlier, okay, number one we define it as 40. So now compilers already know okay, number one is going to be 40. So in future, if you try to assign something, it will warn you that you cannot do that. But since it's a function, which is like a skeleton or maybe like a just an empty
Blueprint.
stuff which you have just defined it, and you are not using it. So while defining anything, you will need to indicate something like what it can be or what it cannot be, something like that.
Yeah. Cool. So
Yeah,
this
so
is
that
what
is
it
where,
was.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, okay. So this is where we define that okay, what our function is expecting a value. So that even if a user doesn't know okay what to pass, so if you remove those value and you just hover your mouse over here, you can see your function is expecting integer. So even if some users are trying to pass string, it won't allow because it will say okay, you require integer for this program. So that is where we define it. So yeah, we can define any values here. Okay, and this is a function which is working fine. And now since we have named this function as myKelsey, but this function is doing one work at a time. Like suppose if I want to do some calculation as in sum, so I have to change this to addition. If I want to change it to subtraction, I have to change this value. So how do we avoid that? So for that, what we can do is we'll learn some new conditions. How do we do that? So first of all, we need to have some parameters which will help us to identify like what user wants to do. So for that, I will do is I will define a string which can be say operate or maybe op. I will write it, and I will say it as string. Okay, and now what we'll do is now it will ask for one more parameter. Okay, so before defining a string, I want to show something in programming which we can do in Kotlin and in other programming language also. Like whenever you are writing your program or any code, it is always good to have some comments on that. What is comments? Comments are those lines which don't get compiled and which is just used for developer purposes. Like developer can understand what this particular function is doing or what particular this class is doing. So to do that, you can just write this forward two slashes like this, and this code won't get compiled, so you don't need to worry about. So you can just write it like this is my function which does so and so thing, and you can write like why we need two parameters. So you can mention like two parameters are required for this and that, and then you can say you can also pass operators and all those things. So you can write this. If you have a multi-line comment, you can write this like forward slash star and forward slash, and you can do this way, and you can write whatever stuff you want to do in multi-line. So this is how you write a comment. So I also need to write down one comment here. Okay, so what I'm writing is so what all things operator can be. So an operator, if we want to add something, will pass string as sum. If we want to subtract, we'll pass minus. If we want to multiply, we'll pass mul. And yeah, that's it. Let's keep 3 operators for now. Okay, so now our operator can be this 3. So here I need to write down one operator, so I will just write mul for now. Okay, and instead of this, what we'll do is we'll write now one condition. So what is condition? So conditions are just like in real life. So suppose if someone asks you uh, like you want to go some particular area, so you will ask like, okay, which area I should go. So they will say, okay, you take this route and go there. But in case if there is some traffic or something, you take other route. Or if there is again traffic there, you take other route. So that is like if else condition. Like if you have already tried this food, then you have to try other food. If you are not hungry, then you should not eat, else you will eat. So something like that. So that we call it as if else statement. So what is if else? So if else are nothing but simple expressions. So we can define some expressions here. So we'll say if operator which is equal to sum, then we'll say do this. If we'll say else if operator equal to mul, do this. Else we'll say else if operator equal to what is left, minus. If minus, then do this. Okay, so this is how you write, and then you can specify else also in case user has given any wrong value for that operator. So you can do that and you can define it. So now since we already had one value written which was for our sum, we can write it here. So now we will just print it and we'll write here sum, and we'll say val sum equal to num1 plus num2. Okay, and I'm just going to copy those lines and we'll just change the value. Okay, so here we'll write it as multiply or mul, same thing, and we'll change it to multiply. Here we are going to subtract, so we'll write minus, and here we'll write sub, and we'll print sub as a value here. So I guess a function statement is mostly written. So let's understand what we are doing here. So since we define a function here, my Kelsey, we are passing two parameters, number one, number two, as we were doing earlier. What thing we made it more dynamic is we added OP, which is our string data type, and it is a string variable. So now we are passing some input here. So like in future, if I want to change this function where I want to do calculation like for the addition, so I don't have to change it here. What I can do is I will create some conditions by default which will help me, so I can just have to pass those things here. So even if I write sum here, my function will go here and it will execute this line. It will not execute other things. So just to test that, let's run the application and see how it's going. Okay, so 1110 plus 12, we can see the output here. If we make it as mul and we run the application, so we can see the 1320 as the output. Similarly, if we write minus, we can see the output 9 p.m. But what if user writes something weird which doesn't exist in our system? So like we can say no operator found. So we can define a message for user in case user tries to divide the numbers. But since we have not written any condition for division, what it will do is it will say no operator found, which we already specified the statement here. So what this if else does is, let me minimize this. Yeah. So if else does nothing, but it checks the property and value, and then it goes into corresponding block and executes the statement. So now we have this statement. So this is getting executed when we are using sum. This is getting executed when using mul. This is when minus. But when we are using something which is weird, at that time it will go into the else block, since we have already defined the else block here. So it will go there, and user can understand, okay, this function doesn't support division. So that is the if else statement we can do just like this. So you can define anything, even if we want to define for our numbers, we can define numbers, we can define boolean, you can do anything. So suppose if we have the boolean here, and in boolean we have only two things to do, like sum and minus. So what we can do is we can just remove the statement, and let us keep for the sum we keep it as true, and for the minus we keep it as false. Okay, so now what we can do is if we write true here, that means we want to do sum. So if we can write it as if op equal to true, and we can do our sum here, and we can write an else statement where we can define the condition for the false. So that is how we can do our boolean operation here. And if we want to only do some calculation, if like number, if our number 1 is greater than 100, then only we want to do this calculation, so we can specify this also. So this is where you can define your conditions, like in if else. And in Kotlin, just like Java, where we have switch cases and all, in Kotlin also we have if condition. Okay, yeah. So if you see here, it is showing that replace if with when. So just like we have switch case in Java, we have when condition in Kotlin. So what does when do is when nothing, like you define when, and then you pass your type of parameter, and then you can specify this as your expressions like conditions. So if we compare it with if, okay, so this is the if here. So this is the if block, and this is the when statement. So you can see, you can only understand like which is more readable. So if I would be going, I would be going it with when. So why when? Because you can simply enter, okay, what you are doing is you are passing op, which is your parameter. You can see your value parameter, and if it is sum, you are doing this thing. If it is null, you are doing these things, and else part you are doing this thing. And also it reduces kind of if else blocks, and it is more readable. So you can do both of the things. If you're coming from Java background, that's why I wanted to show you first if condition. And if you are starting with Kotlin, you can always use when you have multiple conditions. If you have only two conditions, if and else, then definitely go with if else. But other than that, you can also use when condition. So we'll take a pause here if anybody has any doubt. Okay. So any doubt, Darshan?
No, I don't see any doubts over here because you're very
Okay.
good at explaining stuff.
Okay.
There
Okay.
are not
Yeah,
any
sure.
doubts. Right? Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess this is what our function looks like. So now if
Also,
we remove this if else, and if we keep when also, our function will perform the same thing which we were doing. So if we run this function and you change it something some here, so this is how our function will show you the output. Okay, so yeah, this is a function which looks like this. So again, just doing a recap, you define your function by name fun, the name of the function, whatever parameters you want to pass it, you will write it down here, and then in your parentheses you will write all your conditions and things which you want to do as a calculations and all those things here. Okay, so this is the property. Now what we will do is, since we are still defining our variable here, so now we don't want to define like whatever the, like even we have made this function as a separate and a separate object property, but still we need to write down the numbers and all those things here. So can we do that something where user will going to provide their input or something like that? So for that, what we'll do is we'll use user input. So what will user have to do is uh, they will have to pass their parameters or whatever the values they want into the command line. So in command line they will have to share their value. So how do we do that? So basically Kotlin, just like Java also, it has a standard input and output function where you can take the values and you can print something or you can do some functions and all those stuff. So it's just like Java. Kotlin also does that. So how do we do that? So for that we'll need to first define our like scanner. So what is scanner? So basically it's an object class which scans for your like numbers. So suppose since we have number 1 here, so I will say num1, which I will want from my scanner. And how it would be? So it would be system dot input. Okay. And now instead of 1110, let me just write num1. Okay. Okay. So scanner, we are defining it scanner, but since we want the value of that scanner, we need to define it as our int. So how do we do that? So we'll make it as number scan one, and then we'll, for the actual value, we'll have num1, which will be num scan one dot next. We need integer. Next int. Great. So I guess this will help us to get the number from user. Let's make it as 10 so we can easily understand. And now let's run the program. Okay. So now if we run the program, you can see there would be this cursor which is blinking here. So if I pass 10, you can see the color is also a little bit different than normal console output. And if I press enter, you can see the calculation is 20. So similarly, we'll do the same thing for other number also. So we'll write number 2, and now we'll pass number 2 here. Okay. And just to add something, what will I will do is, will to make it a little bit beautify, we can write string as well. So like if you are showing some output and you want to show a message, you can do this way. You can say your total sum is this. Okay. And now if we run the program, okay, here we have to make it number 2. Okay. Okay, so now we have to pass two numbers. So we'll say 12 and the other number will pass at 13. So you can see your total sum is 42. So this is a little bit beautified compared to just showing the output. So user can understand, okay, what they wanted to do is happening. And also in Kotlin, you can do it little bit more neat way. What you can do is, instead of adding plus as a concatenation, you can just remove that, and you can do this way, and then you can put a dollar sign here. So what it will do is it will print the string, but you can also pass your variable like this. So if we run the app, it would be the same way as earlier it was. Let's put both the values at 10 10, and you can see the total sum is 20. So there won't be any changes, but it will just look a little bit neat and clean. So this is what we did. And now let's also take the operator from the system instead of defining it hard coded. So we can say, we can name it as OPC.
Chintan, so we have a doubt for you.
Okay.
Siddharth had this doubt. Do you need two scanner objects for two inputs?
Do no. Basically, I want to make it little bit more cleaner for you so that it is easy to understand. That's why I have separated out and defining it as a separate scanner object, so that you can understand that okay, for each scanner we are using one object only. So that way,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Also, I had this
So it
one
is
question. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
go
So
ahead,
it's
go ahead.
basically easy to understand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
And
had this one
now,
question.
okay.
Chetan, so I had this question over here. So you wrote system dot the backticks, and inside that backtick it's what in. So why there is an backticks over there? Because in
Oh, okay, okay. So if you hover it here, you can see this function is basically going to call that function which is in Java. So okay, so basically whenever you call something in Kotlin, definitely it's going to call the underlying function and it will be getting compiled to your Java bytecode. So why we write? So it is the type where you can write your function name like this. So suppose if you have, or you can also define your function name with that, like this. So you can also write your function name like this as well. So mostly when we do testing, so you can write a very long name like this function is going to do that, something like that. So you can put whole string like this and it would be with space also. And when you
oh,
call this function,
that's
yeah, yeah, so you can call the function
that is
like
very
this.
neat, right?
Yeah. So when we do testing in Android, so since testing doesn't require you to follow any good practice or writing the function name, and also there we have to specify what this function is doing. So if we use camel case, it is little bit difficult to read, but when you use something like this, it is easy to read and you can also understand what this function does. But yeah, normal practice, standard practice, we don't do that. So this is the function call which is happening in a similar way. Since this function has a very long name, system dot scan dot input stream dot in. So to make it shorter, this is the way they have defined it. So yeah, and just a thing, you can also make it next, and next we want to make it as string. Okay, so we have to do is as next, and we have to check that. Okay. Oh, sorry, we'll only need to write next since it's a string. Okay, and we'll just write it this way and let's run and check. Okay, so I'm entering 2, 2, and for multiplication we have mu L. So, okay, so we are getting answer it as 4. And let's run again, and this time we'll try addition. So we'll say 1000 plus 211, and we'll say sum. Okay, so the total sum is 1211. So this is the output which we were expecting from our system. Generally, you are definitely not going to write such console-based application. But yeah, just to show like if your friends or maybe your any colleagues or someone asks you like, okay, what you learned today, and you want to show them something like, okay, you can create some calculator console-based application, that too in one day. So they would be uh, very amazed to see this. So that is why I wanted to show how to take it from user, how to define it your way, and also some conditions which can help you build the program. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show for this first day workshop. Like just to get familiar with Kotlin and just to understand the conditions and all those stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah, if anyone has any doubt or something we want to see something more or like that, so we can have like if anyone want to see something which we used to do in Java and how to define those things, and then I can like show or maybe solve your doubts, or maybe just we can do some experiments, or else what we can do is we can just you guys can practice it out today, and then for tomorrow what we are going to see is the XML part, like where we will see how to define an UI in Android. And then we'll see how what is the application, how the application runs in Android and all those stuff in like next chapter.
Chintan,
So
we had this question from Puneet. Are there no access modifiers specified for functions in Kotlin?
yeah, we need to specify those access modifier. By default, it is public. Even your class and everything is public in Kotlin. But since we have this function, we can define it as private so that some other classes cannot access this object. So yeah, do we have this private, public, and sort of stuff. But if you see public is redundant because it's public only, we don't need to provide that. So yeah, we have those access modifiers.
Let's wait for a few minutes. If
Yeah,
there
yeah,
is any doubt, then we can
yeah.
wrap up the session for today.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I can just revise it. Like this is how you define your function. Main is your entry point of any function. Which how to run a function? You can see a green arrow here. Even if you don't see that, you can find this one button here. You can run the function. If you want to run function from keyboard, you can use Control Shift and F10 to run the function. This is how we write a comment. You can define your values, variables, properties like this. This is how you can define your function with some parameters. This is your when, which is similar to switch cases in Java. And also we have seen if conditions. Okay, then I guess Darshan, I guess participants are clear with the doubts, and maybe they
Yeah,
will
cool.
just do some hands-on. And even if someone is getting any doubts, since Darshan and Harsh has already mentioned that we have a WhatsApp group, so you can put down your doubts there. So whenever I'm available, I will try to help you with that. And for tomorrow's session, just practice those things so we can use the same learning for tomorrow's session as well. So yeah, Darshan, I'm stopping my screen share, handing over to you.
Yeah, so Puneet had this question, right? So could you please repeat about the developer badges which we talked at the beginning? Yeah, Puneet. So basically, Google has this developer profile. So you can go to google.dev and register your profile over there. And over there, when you use your account for any Google related stuff, do you complete the code labs and sign into Android Studio or stuff like that? So they will provide you with badges. So these badges are just a souvenir, and you can just keep it over your profile and share it on your social media. The use of that badges over here is that there are two types of certificate over here: the participation certificate and the completion certificate. So when once you complete the Google profile, so once you complete this course, we will soon send you the course link and the profile link and a form to collect all the details about you for that profile. After the completion of the event, we will check all the profiles and have you completed the 16 pathways and you completed the course. Then only we will send you the completion certificate, or else you will get the participation certificate. That's it, right? So it is just a souvenir and a thing to flex on. Also, to mention this, if you want, you can also take up the Google certification course on Android, and we will reimburse 80% of the fee. And yeah, and you have to pass the course, right? That's the only criteria. Cool. Also, Harsh has sent you the feedback link, and we will also share it on the WhatsApp group. You can just give us the feedback for this day, and see you all tomorrow, next day, at 5 o'clock. Right? Cool. Everyone, thank you for joining in, and we will see you tomorrow. Okay, Siddhant has this question. Is this the same profile what people that just a second. Is this the same profile that people that participate in Quick Labs setup? I guess it is the same profile. I haven't done any quick Labs setup. Yeah. Also, don't change the link of that profile during this course. After that, you can change that link. You can add a custom link to it. Yeah. So yeah, everyone. See you. Do you have any if you have any questions, I would suggest you to work a bit on Kotlin console. So whatever you want to do, you can just write a simple code and stuff like that in the Kotlin, and show us your projects. And if you have any questions, ask us on the group. Chintan and I are also present on the group, so we can help you over there. Cool. Yeah. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.